Hi, this is Jeff Blauette, technical agronomist with Cooperative Farmers Elevator, and on this week's Field Friday segment, thought we'd kind of talk about maybe the next management step to consider in corn. You know, we've talked about this the last number of years, and we're getting to that time where this discussion on should we consider spraying some fungicide on this corn crop needs to be discussed. We're getting close to that time. We're this holiday weekend, we're in this first week of July. If I stage most of this corn that's out here in this last week of April planting window, most of this stuff's about 2 weeks from tassel, give or take a few days here and there of earlier maturing hybrids or earlier planted and so on, but that's a ballpark idea when we're going to start seeing tassels out in the fields. With this weather we're going to have, we're talking 85 to 90 for highs and lows around 70 degrees. We have really rapid heat unit accumulation, so things are going to keep maturing rather rapidly. You can pull a whirl out of this corn now, most of this stuff, and you can unwrap how many leaves are going to have to unfold before we get the tassels to come out. You can kind of guess when your corn's going to tassel based on that. With this kind of heat accumulation, you're probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 days per leaf to unroll and form a collar and develop. So that kind of gives you an idea. If you've got 4 leaves that aren't unrolled yet, when you pull that tassel out of the center, that's about 8 days roughly, 8-9 days. So that kind of can give you an idea on staging. The ideal time is probably right after we get silks emerging. When we get into heat and drought stress, the normal progression of a corn plant is the tassels that unroll first, and then we start getting silks emerging. The last number of years where moisture has not been a factor, we've actually had silks emerging at the same time or even before the tassels emerge, but we may see that a little different this year with the heat and humidity we may have, and potentially with some of these areas that miss some of the rain, maybe some drought stress coming in here with what these corn plants are going through. But we've got lots of humidity. You know how muggy it's been lately. I expect we may have some diseases that could be an issue here this coming next month or so. We've had a lot of southern winds, day after day of south winds, fairly strong winds a few times. That whole week we would have liked to have been spraying beans. We could have some more diseases blowing up from the south because of that. Long stretches of southern winds will blow some of the inoculum up. We have a lot of residue out in these fields that'll harbor that disease inoculum, so that's kind of why we always talk about corn on corn being much more of a no-brainer almost when it comes to fungicide. We've got a really nice looking crop. We've had really good planting conditions, we had good root development, and now we've got, these roots have gone down into the subsoil, so we've got everything looking pretty nice right now. So I think we have really good potential, so we're going to maybe want to consider protecting that. The economics, of course, aren't as favorable for investing in this crop yet, although in this last little bit here with the crop report it's improved some. But let's just use $3 corn for instance. If you figure somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 to put a plane in the air, somewhere between $10 and $20 depending on fungicide choice and whether you prepaid and rebates and all those things. That's kind of the range of where you're at with most of that stuff. You're probably looking at, you want to have, it's a 10 bushel response to break even roughly. I think in a really high yield environment that we could possibly be in, and corn on corn with a high yielding racehorse type hybrid, 10 bushels should be fairly easy to come by if we don't have anything else weird happen. So if we look at, we had a lot of fields do 20 bushel response last year. Even with $3 corn, you're basically doubling your money. So I guess that's just something to look at, as far as it's not a no-brainer by any means with the economics of the way things are, but it's also still a potential return on investment that's worth considering. I guess the couple of key factors, what's the rotation? We talked about corn on corn being much more likely to give us a response. We've seen that year after year. But the other thing to consider is, what's the hybrid? We've talked about this again before, but Cropland's answer plot system probably has some of the best research as far as differentiating the hybrids that have a response to fungicides and how big a response. Basically, we're trying to stack our odds. We know with the economics of things, we're only going to do the highest likelihood of a return fields, and the rest of them we're not going to. So there's a lot of hybrids that fit into that. If it's really an offensive, high-yielding hybrid that really puts a lot of emphasis towards yield, there's a good chance that it's going to have a higher response to fungicide. It needs to be babied, and it'll usually respond to you if you do feed that need that plant has. But you need to understand if you have those hybrids, and then what the field situation is. If it looks like it's a really good field, everything has looked good all year, and you have a high-yielding, high-responsive hybrid, it would be one to definitely consider. So I wouldn't just throw it out the window with $3 corn. Maybe if we get lucky, maybe we'll get a little bit more of a rally here with the market dynamics, and maybe we'll get a little bit over 3 1/4 or 350 maybe if we're really lucky. But keep that in mind in this fungicide discussion. We've got some things that we're playing with in our research plots this year where we're going out. We just applied some fungicide the other day on corn that's basically V12. We're going to have some data on that this fall, but typically that V12 leaf is roughly where the ear attaches. So we're going to see if protecting mostly that leaf and maybe the leaves in the whorl above that, see if we get similar type of yield response, and then we can even do that a lot easier with a ground rig. So just something we're looking at on the fungicide game, something new. So with that, talk to your CFE agronomist and see if you have field situations that might fit the fungicide application. And again, we've got such a nice looking crop. There's two parts to this: price per bushel and the amount of bushels. We can only control one of those, so that's something to definitely evaluate. But with that, have a great Independence Day holiday and try and stay cool, and we'll see you next week.